Hey everybody, JJ here. Bull to the bust. It is June 30th, 2020, the last day of June. As we are sitting right now about halfway through the year 2020, and it's very likely that we're now going to enter phase 2 of this shutdown recession as we are seeing new calls for reclosings of businesses and restaurants, for example, and that could kick off the next level of unemployment, and it's very likely that unemployment filings could begin rising again. Now, they've been ridiculously high, roughly about 50 million filings since the shutdown in mid-March, and we continue to see at least 1 million new filings each week. Now, we did have some reports that showed some jobs are coming back, but the new filings continue to pour in one after another, week after week after week, over 1 million. And we know that when you look at the more of a raw number, nearly half of U.S. working age people are unemployed. So the true unemployment rate should be close to 50% when you look at the labor force participation rate of working age individuals. Right, so pretty soon it's going to be, and I'm not sure how long this is going to take, could be 6 months from now, could be a couple years from now. But eventually it looks like it's going to be maybe 20% of people will be working, and then the other 80% either unemployed or living off the government unless something changes. Well, later on in this video I'm going to talk about something that I see happening on the horizon. I see a grand awakening happening for the financial system. I think a lot of people are going to be shaken, violently shaken awake to the reality of how this financial system actually robs the bottom 90% but enriches the people at the very top. So a lot of people say this channel is doom and gloom. I do see a grand awakening and maybe calls for a different financial system eventually once people finally learn what's happened and how they've been looted and robbed. So phase 2 of the shutdown recession, what many people would refer to as a depression out there here, Dr. Doom right here says the outbreak is going to be very disturbing, could top 100,000 cases a day. So there's more fear being pushed out there. You're going to see governments and governors of states mandating more shutdowns, closing businesses. We've got a couple news articles here regarding this, but this is happening in various degrees across the country. Some states not so much, but other states big rises in these cases and illnesses. ABC.com article right here, ABC7.com. 4th of July 2020, LA County beaches will close over the holiday weekend. So holiday weekend, the 4th of July. Who at the beginning of this shutdown in March would have guessed that this would be happening, that here we are celebrating the 4th of July and you're going to be discouraged from going to the beach in LA. All right, also, Governor Newsom out here in California shut down bars in about 6 of the counties out here, and there's shutdowns of other types of businesses happening all over the country. So it's going to get very interesting, especially are the police going to really try to enforce this shutdown, especially with the sentiment right now, all the anti-police sentiment that's happening in this country. So again, it's going to get very interesting, but let's take a look at the markets today. You would have thought with this type of prediction, with 100,000 new cases a day being predicted, you would think that the markets would crash, right? Well, not so much. Let's take a look at Yahoo right here. Dow Jones in the green, up over 200 points. Also green on the S&P, green on the NASDAQ. And in fact, the S&P just ended its best quarter since 1998. Imagine that. The best quarter in over 20 years for the S&P amid a record-breaking quarter where you saw more unemployment filings more than at any other point in history, and yet the market saw its best, the S&P saw its best quarter in over 20 years. Pretty amazing, pretty manipulated is more like it. Let's talk about metals. Let's talk about gold, specifically over $1,800 shattered today. This is the highest since 2011, so metals gold continues to be bullish. And with all the Fed printing, many metals watchers, many gold bugs were predicting that by now gold would have been beyond 2,000. And it's just amazing that this metal has not taken off even more with all the Fed money printing that's going on and bailouts and stimulus, you name it. Now let's take a closer look into gold right here. This is historically the gains that we've seen in gold. Over the past month, almost 3%, year to date 17%, 1 year 27%, 10 years 43%. So if you just look at it over the past year, gold has outperformed housing as far as gains. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later on in this video, but the silver lining in all this, I think, is people are going to wake up at the end of this. They're going to finally figure out what's happening in the financial system, how they've been looted. Most people right now don't even know what the meaning of a fiat currency is, and that they can create endless amounts of this debt, this currency. Dollar is a debt note. Awakening is going to finally have us transition into a sound money system. So I do think that gold metal eventually is going to take off as maybe adopted at some point in the future. Now many of you could say that's over optimistic, and it may sound a little different than I sound here on this channel. Some people call this channel doom and gloom. I just say it's the truth. Now the whole currency situation where there's going to be a grand awakening and finally a switch back into an asset-based currency, that's not any sort of inside information, or no, I don't have a crystal ball. It is just me kind of analyzing what might happen after this next devastating economic collapse. And when people realize they've been duped and they start looking into the financial system instead of paying attention to sports and the Kardashians and all of these other distractions that so many people, so many Americans are occupied with. Also, if we look to the far right here, we see that silver caught a nice little bid today, up a couple percent, up to $18.26. I also expect silver to really find its true value once the full pain of the economic collapse hits. People will be forced to pay attention and to realize how we've been duped and that we need some sort of sound money backed by gold, and I think silver is going to play a part in this new financial reset. Alright, that is what I mentioned in my last video that I was talking about, where I said if I told you what I think is going to happen, many of you wouldn't believe me. So let me know what you think. Is this overly optimistic? Is there going to be no grand awakening? Is there going to be no learning or financial reset? Or are we just going to continue to go down this black hole of just debt and endless Fed bailouts? You let me know. But in order to prevent absolute Mad Max chaos and millions of starving and homeless people, they're going to have to keep pumping out the stimulus to the population, especially as we enter recession or phase 2 of the shutdown recession. A recent article here out of CBS: extra $600 pandemic unemployment aid may end a week early for some. So many people are going to stop getting their checks before the end of July. What is going to happen? The government's going to have to step up. They're going to have to increase the payouts as these extra unemployment benefits end. And the real test is going to be when the forbearance ends and the moratoriums on the evictions and the foreclosures. So we've talked about this a few times. This shutdown was the perfect cover for people to not look at the real problem or the real cause of this. The real cause of this is endless printing out of the Fed, the asset bubbles that the Fed has created. Of course, they're never going to come out and admit that. They're pretty much paid to lie. And if you look here at celebrity net worth, Jerome Powell's net worth, $50 million. So if you pay people enough, they will say anything, including that the economy was great before the shutdown. You know, that's the narrative that they want you to believe, and all the sheeple, even today, still believed. People had no idea that this was all based on debt and inflating asset bubbles, right? When you pump enough money into the economy, when you flood the economy with easy money via easy loans from banks that actually don't have the money that they're lending, but they can get endless bailouts from the Fed, then it's going to make things look pretty good for a while, and it may create a lot of jobs. But now the shutdown, everybody's pointing at the shutdown as the reason instead of this failed bubble fiat funny money system. But the world's biggest companies continue to flourish at this time. Amazon's looking to hire their 1,000th worker at the HQ to employee headquarters. No plans on downsizing. So the rich continue to get richer. The poor, the middle class, the working class, the small businesses continue to get wiped out. Now with shutdown recession phase 2 coming into play, remember they're saying there's a chance of hundreds of thousands of new cases every day in this next phase, this next round of outbreaks. And fasten your seatbelt, folks. It's going to be a very interesting and wild second half of 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, please check the link down below. Also, SD Bullion, that's where I get my gold and metals. And I'm stacking a little bit each month. It does add up over time. You help out this channel when you use the link down below. If there is a grand awakening and we do transition over to a sound money system with gold and silver both being part of that new asset-backed currency, you're going to be glad, because the true value will then be discovered of these metals. Or even if you're not that optimistic, just having the hedge against inflation. What if we do see hyperinflation? Either way, it's a win-win. I've never regretted any of my purchases in metals. So again, link down below if you'd like to support the channel and help protect yourself and prepare. Thanks, everybody.